When you look at the separate surveys, the household survey brings us a higher unemployment rate, slightly unexpected, but also shows a bit of weakness potentially under the hood. How do you put this all together?
Yeah, it's kind of a good news and a bad news story. On the one side, really strong jobs report and wages inching higher over the year. I mean, that speaks to an economy in good order, despite interest rates being where they are and all the talk of a hard landing coming. It's all pointing towards a soft landing. That's the good story. But then, as you mentioned, the unemployment rate ticked up, not by a lot, it's only 4%, but some are warning that's a harbinger of where things are going. And of course, the sting in the tail of the good jobs numbers is that there's still the inflation risk there. And that means borrowing costs, mortgage rates won't be coming down anytime soon. So yes, it's a good headline number, but complicated on the inflation front and probably not a mixed message, I think, on the political front too.
Sure. Wages up again, participation down a bit. We're not actually at the same participation rate we were at pre-COVID. The administration didn't have a lot to say about that today.
No, and there's a lot of mixed signals going on when you look into the data, by the way. Like you mentioned, the household survey is telling a different survey to what the companies in the established survey are saying. There are some good nuggets within it, though. Like we were looking earlier on today that the female participation rate has shot up over the past year. So, as I say, it's a complicated story. There are plenty of economists warning out there that things are weaker than the headline suggests. Look at job openings falling, for example. Look at what the households are telling you. But I think net overall, you'd have to say the jobs market remains somewhat robust, in good order. But of course, that has a double-edged sword, politically speaking.
What do you make of this argument over the impact of immigration? This is really interesting and something we keep asking about. There was a study earlier in the week, Standard Chartered Bank, that showed that maybe 109,000 jobs a month could be coming from undocumented immigrants crossing the border. If the president's executive order lowers these numbers dramatically, does it show up in the jobs report?
Yeah, this is a big topic we need a lot more time for, but just to get into it, we have been looking at it. The bottom line is economists saying all those immigrants that came into the economy last year did help fill jobs that couldn't be filled and then did help keep pressure off inflation. But to your point, this week's executive order on the border is making some economists ask, what happens if that influx of workers is taken away? There could be an economic downside to that. It's early days yet, but definitely it's a talking point and people are keeping an eye on it.
We got a Fed meeting next week. We get to the chase here at last. Fed expectations, rate cut expectations have fallen off a cliff since this morning as well.
Yeah, anyone hoping for a cheaper mortgage will have to hold on. Nothing happening with the Fed next week. But more importantly, I think, Joe, inflation data on Wednesday morning. It's not the famous PC. Not the famous PC that the Fed looks at, but it's still inflation data, and that's all important for the months ahead.
Fascinating. You're so good at bringing this down to ground level, Enda. Thank you so much. Enda Curran with us at Bloomberg as we dissect the numbers on this Jobs Day. And this morning, the president was not talking about jobs. He was in Normandy again, commemorating the anniversary, the 80th anniversary of D-Day, with a speech at Pointe-du-Hoc in France, the cliffs of Normandy, in that very same spot where Ronald Reagan spoke 40 years ago, drawing a parallel between two presidents of opposing parties. Earlier in the day, President Biden also met with Ukrainian President Zelenskiy and apologized for the months-long delay in aid from the U.S.
I apologize for those weeks of not knowing what's going to happen in terms of funding, and because we had trouble getting the bill that we had to pass that had the money in it from some of our very conservative members who were holding it up. But we got it done finally.
Saying it out loud today in France. Let's bring in Bloomberg's Megan Scully with more on this. Pretty remarkable, Megan. That became the headline. Joe Biden apologizes to Volodymyr Zelenskiy, but he also committed another $225 million in aid as we wait for the weapons to be made with the billions just passed by Congress.
Yes. So we have this sort of interesting dichotomy. I don't know that I've ever seen a president apologize to another world leader. Of course, he was apologizing on behalf of congressional leaders who were very slow moving in getting this package through. It had been tied up for months and months in Congress. So now we are playing catch up and getting this aid to Ukraine.
Sure. This is a drawdown, realizing from U.S. supplies. We've got a long way to go to fulfill this $60+ billion commitment to Ukraine that's been passed. But interesting politics here. The speech that we referenced at Pointe-du-Hoc, the White House openly channeling Ronald Reagan, the former Republican president in this case, to draw a contrast between the old line Republican Party and MAGAville. Is that what this is?
You know, what's so striking to me about this is that Joe Biden was in the Senate in 1984 when Ronald Reagan gave the speech, and Ronald Reagan and Joe Biden weren't exactly on the same page politically. And now you have, Biden really taking a page from that playbook today and speaking very passionately about the future of democracy, talking about, vanquishing hateful ideologies, in a not so veiled, reference to Donald Trump without naming Donald Trump by name. I think it goes to show you how politics have changed so remarkably in the United States in the last 40 years, particularly how much the Republican Party has changed, veered away from, Ronald Reagan's city on a hill, phraseology, and really getting to more of the America first that
build
Donald
that
Trump.
wall.
Yeah,
Let's get a taste of what President Biden said today, talking about the importance of democracy in the speech. Here he is.
We talk about democracy, American democracy. We often talk about the ideals of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. What we don't talk about is how hard it is. The most natural instinct is to walk away, to be selfish, to force our will upon others, to seize power, never give up. American democracy asks the hardest of things, to believe.
A largely well-delivered speech for someone who is criticized for being old. This is something, the optics here, that the White House was very concerned with. But that shot, for those of you who were with us on Bloomberg TV, was absolutely gorgeous. The president dons the aviators before he leaves the podium. The trappings, the pomp and circumstance surrounding this ceremony is exactly what we talk about when we talk about the benefits of incumbency.
Sure. He certainly looked very presidential there today. And remember, Donald Trump did not go to Normandy, during, for the last anniversary. And that is a remarkable difference between the two men as well.